The chandelier overhead cost more than a suburban house, but Chloe Vanderbilt didn't even notice it. Her eyes sharp and cold as diamond-tipped drills were fixed on the woman in the simple linen dress. "He told me he was married," Chloe hissed, her voice a cruel purr. "But he never told me his wife was a charity case." She looked the woman up and down. "Tell me, Amelia, do you get all your clothes from the church donation bin?" The woman. Amelia just stared, her heart breaking. Her husband David stood silent, trapped. But what Chloe didn't know, what no one knew, was that the simple woman she was mocking could buy this entire building with her pocket change. And her father was about to make a phone call that would turn Chloe's diamond-studded world to dust. Amelia Hayes loved the smell of potting soil. It was earthy, real, and uncomplicated. It was everything her life in the polished, sterile suburbs of Greenwich, Connecticut, was not. She was on her knees in the modest garden behind her 4-bedroom colonial, her hands free of rings, save for a simple thin gold band working compost into the soil. Her light brown hair was tied back in a messy bun, and a streak of dirt was smudged across her cheek. She wore a faded University of Vermont t-shirt and linen pants that had seen better days. She was, by all appearances, completely and utterly unremarkable. A sleek black Mercedes AMG pulled into the driveway, its engine a low, dissatisfied growl. David Hayes stepped out, looking every inch the man Forbes was desperate to profile. His suit was a custom Tom Ford, his watch an Audemars Piguet, and his hair was perfectly coiffed. He glanced at his wife, and a familiar tiny muscle in his jaw twitched. "Amelia!" He called out, his voice tight. He didn't walk over. He just loosened his tie, checking his phone. "We have the Jennings dinner tonight, at 8. Amelia shaded her eyes, smiling. "I know, honey. I'm just finishing up. I thought I'd wear the blue dress, the one you liked." David sighed, a sound of pure exasperation. The blue dress, the cotton one." "Amelia, this is Mark Jennings. His wife will be wearing Oscar de la Renta. Do you want me to be laughed at? Do you actively enjoy making us look like this?" He gestured vaguely at her, at the garden, at the whole scene. Amelia's smile faltered. "David, it's just dinner. I thought they wanted to meet me." "They want to meet the wife of a future partner," he snapped. "They want to see that I come from that I have a support system. Not a gardener." He didn't mean to be cruel. Or perhaps he did. Lately it was hard to tell. David Hayes was a man drowning in ambition. He was a senior VP at a cutthroat real estate development firm, Jennings Stryker, and he was this close to making partner. He had clawed his way up from a middle-class background in Ohio, and he was terrified of anyone seeing the Ohio in him. He had married Amelia 5 years ago. He'd met her when she was volunteering at a soup kitchen, an event his old company had sponsored for PR. He was charmed by her gentle spirit, her lack of artifice. He'd found her simplicity refreshing, a palate cleanser from the demanding high-maintenance women he usually dated. He'd asked about her family, and she'd said, "Oh, my father's in logistics. He lives very quietly." David had pictured a comfortable middle management life. He'd pictured simple. But now, 5 years later, her simplicity felt like a millstone around his neck. It was holding him back. "Just go to the Neiman Marcus card," he said, rubbing his temples. "Buy something. Silk. And please do something with your hair." He turned and walked in when his phone, already pressed to his ear. "Mark?" "Yeah, I just pulled in." No, she's thrilled. Absolutely thrilled. "See you at 8. Amelia remained on her knees, the damp soil suddenly feeling cold against her skin. She looked at her dirt-stained hands. She hadn't lied to David. Her father, Julian Rousseau, was in logistics, and he did live quietly. What she had omitted was that Rousseau Villars Maritime, the company her grandfather founded, was one of the largest private shipping and logistics empires on the planet. Her father, Julian, was a recluse, a phantom billionaire who hadn't been photographed in 20 years. He lived quietly on a private, self-sufficient island off the coast of Maine, and Amelia, his only child, was his sole heir. She had run from that life. She'd seen what the wealth did, the paranoia, the sycophants, the emptiness. She'd wanted just once to be loved for Amelia. Not for the Rousseau name. Not for the Forbes list. She had gotten her wish. David had loved her. The question was, did he still? She went inside, showered, and looked at the black American Express card he'd left on the marble countertop. The Centurion card. Her father had given it to her. David assumed it was one of those high-limit cards for people with good credit. He had no idea it had no limit at all. She put the card back in her simple leather wallet and went to her closet. She pulled out the blue cotton dress. It was simple, yes, but it was also a Gabriella Hearst, a designer known for quiet, sustainable luxury, a dress that cost more than David's suit. She would wear it, because she liked it. The restaurant L'Étoile d'Or was the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu. Its walls were hushed, its lighting was designed to make everyone look beautiful, and the air hummed with the quiet, terrifying sound of old money. David was in hell. Amelia, true to her word, had worn the blue dress. She looked lovely, her hair in a simple, elegant chignon, her face almost free of makeup. But to David, she looked like a child. Mark Jennings and his wife Isabella were already at the table. Mark was a bear of a man, all false smiles and shark-like eyes. Isabella was a stick-thin woman, preserved in Chanel and cynicism. "David, good to see you." Mark boomed, shaking his hand. His eyes slid to Amelia. "And this must be the famous Amelia. David's grounding influence." "It's lovely to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. Jennings," Amelia said, her voice calm and warm. Isabella's eyes did a slow, calculating scan of Amelia from her simple pearl earrings down to her modest but very expensive The Row flats. The scan was an execution. Isabella's smile was a slash of red lipstick. "Oh, how quaint," she said. "David, you didn't tell us she was a minimalist." David forced a laugh. "Amelia has always been unconcerned with labels." "How brave," Isabella murmured, flagging down a waiter. "A bottle of the Petrus 98. Unless, Amelia, do you even drink? Or is it all rainwater and herbal tea?" "Wine is lovely, thank you," Amelia said, unfazed. She was used to women like Isabella. Her father's world was full of them. The dinner was a nightmare. David tried to talk up his latest project, a massive, high-risk waterfront development. Mark Jennings seemed non-committal, but the real performance was from Isabella. "I'm on the board for the Met Gala this year," Isabella announced, swirling her $6,000, a bottle wine. "It is such a bore. The people you have to let in now. Influencers." She shuddered. "Amelia, what do you do?" Mark asked, turning to her. "David says you're into gardening." "I volunteer at the New Haven Women's Shelter," Amelia said, "and I manage a small endowment fund for sustainable agriculture." "Oh, a fund," Isabella said, perking up. "Which one? BlackRock, KRR?" It's a private one, Amelia said simply. The Helena Foundation. Isabella and Mark shared a look. It was a look of instant dismissal. A private fund. A hobby. It was code for unemployed rich girl with a trust fund. They had pegged her as minor, insignificant. David felt his face burning. He needed to fix this. He needed to show them he wasn't married to a simpleton. He needed a miracle. And the miracle arrived in the form of a hurricane. Mark Isabella. You darlings. A woman's voice, smooth as whiskey, cut through the restaurant's murmur. A figure appeared, all legs red-soled, Louboutins, and a white Balmain blazer that seemed to be stitched directly to her skin. Her hair was a waterfall of salon perfect blonde. Her name was Chloe Vanderbilt. Chloe was a pinned brand strategy consultant, which meant she was a high-class fixer for the ultra-rich. She knew everyone, and everyone knew her. She was also, for the past 6 months, David Hayes's lover. David felt the blood drain from his face. Chloe. What a surprise. David, she air-kissed him, letting her fingers trail down his arm, a move of pure, insolent possession. She turned to Mark and Isabella. Darlings, I was at the bar and saw you. I had to come over. Chloe, you know my wife Amelia. David managed to say, his voice strained. Chloe's eyes, the color of a glacial lake, landed on Amelia. It was not a glance. It was an appraisal, the kind a butcher gives a side of beef. She took in the cotton dress, the simple hair, the lack of statement jewelry. A slow, cruel smile spread across her face. Oh, she said, her voice dripping with a sickly sweet condescension. Oh, this is Amelia. She held out a perfectly manicured hand, her 20-carat yellow diamond, a gift from a previous client, flashing under the light. Amelia took it. Chloe's grip was tight, her nails digging in. David talks about you. Chloe purred her eyes, never leaving Amelia's. But I must have misheard. I pictured someone different. I'm sure you did, Amelia said, extracting her hand. I love your dress, Chloe said, lying with breathtaking ease. It's so honest. Where did you even find it? I've been looking for something simple for my housekeeper's daughter. The table went silent. Isabella Jennings let out a small, delighted titter. Mark Jennings watched with amusement. David. David did nothing. He just sat there, frozen in a rictus of terror and humiliation, as this woman, his mistress, publicly filleted his wife. Amelia looked at Chloe. She looked at David, who was staring at his wine glass as if it held the secrets to the universe. And she looked at the Jenningses, who were watching her, like she was the floor show. She placed her napkin on the table. You'll have to excuse me, she said, her voice perfectly even. I seem to have lost my appetite. She stood up and walked away. Not running, not storming, just leaving. David made a motion to get up, but Chloe put her hand on his thigh under the table. Let her go, darling. She whispered, her voice a promise. The adults are talking. David sat back down, and in that moment he sealed his fate. The affair was no longer a secret. It was a strategy. Chloe Vanderbilt didn't do things by halves. She saw David as a fixer-upper project. He had good bone structure, a decent job, and a ravenous ambition that she found deeply attractive. The only thing holding him back was his mouse of a wife. Chloe was here to exterminate the pest. She began her campaign with the subtlety of a wrecking ball. David, darling, she'd say, lounging in his office after hours. You can't possibly get the waterfront deal funded with that mom-and-pop investment group. You need giants. You need Villard. Villard, David said. They're a ghost. No one can get a meeting with Rousseau. Leave it to me, Chloe purred. I know a man who knows the man who gets Julian Rousseau's coffee. It's a start. She was intoxicating. She was everything Amelia was not: loud, demanding, connected, and utterly shamelessly materialistic. David, weak and dazzled, fell into her orbit completely. He stopped going home, claiming late nights at the office. He bought a small, sleek apartment in the city, a pied-à-terre for work, he told Amelia. It was where he and Chloe lived their new life. Amelia was not a fool. She was the daughter of a man who could track a single shipping container from Shanghai to Rotterdam in real time. She knew what late nights meant. She saw the new charges on the Amex statements. David still thought they shared the account, not that she was the primary holder. $12,000. Armani Privé. Amelia knew he wasn't buying suits. $4,500. Le Bernardin, a table for two. $22,000. Cartier, a Juste un Clou bracelet. Amelia didn't wear bracelets. She was watching her marriage die in a blizzard of receipts. The true poison, however, was social. Chloe began a systematic campaign to replace Amelia. She accidentally tagged David in intimate Instagram photos from group dinners. She started showing up at his work events, positioning herself as his unofficial partner. "Oh, David is just lost without me," she'd laugh to Mark and Isabella Jennings. His wife, bless her heart, she just doesn't understand this world. She thinks zoning is something you do in a garden. David, to his shame, let it happen. He was winning. With Chloe's connections, he was making headway on the waterfront project. He'd secured a tentative third-party interest from a shell corporation he was told was linked to the Villard Group. He was on the verge of becoming the man he always wanted to be. The guilt he felt about Amelia was a small, dull ache easily ignored. Amelia, meanwhile, was living in a ghost house. The gardener came, the housekeeper cleaned, but the home was empty. She spent her days at the shelter, her evenings reading. She was giving him space, hoping he would come to his senses. The breaking point came with a simple package. Amelia was pruning her roses when a FedEx truck arrived. A driver handed her a large flat box from Saks Fifth Avenue. It was addressed to Ms. Chloe Vanderbilt, si pour vous. Oh, David Hayes. They were sending packages to her home. Amelia's hands, steady and sure, did not tremble. She calmly signed for the package, took it inside, and placed it on the kitchen island. She got a pair of scissors and neatly sliced the tape. Inside, wrapped in layers of tissue paper, was a dress. A stunning silver backless Versace gown. Tucked into the tissue was a small handwritten note on Chloe Vanderbilt letterhead. "Darling D, this will be perfect for the awards dinner. Can't wait for everyone to see us. You, me, and this dress. It's time. Kisses C. The Real Estate Guild Awards dinner." It was next week. It was the biggest night of David's career. He was being honored as Rising Star. And he was taking Chloe. Amelia stood in the silent, sun-drenched kitchen, the glittering, vulgar dress spilling over the marble countertop. This was not a late night. This was not a work dinner. This was a declaration. This was a new wife. She felt a cold, calm certainty settle over her. The hurt was still there, a deep tectonic crack, but on top of it was a layer of pure glacial ice. She folded the dress, placed it back in the box, and retaped it. Then she did something she hadn't done in 5 years. She picked up her phone and dialed a number that was not saved in her contacts, a number she knew by heart. It rang once, twice, a strange, static-filled connection. A voice, old, quiet, and impossibly authoritative, answered. "Yes, Daddy." Amelia said, her voice cracking for the first time. It's Leah. I think I need to come home. Just for a little while." There was a pause. The voice on the other end softened, but only just. "The Odyssey is refueling in Halifax. It can be in Greenwich by tomorrow morning. Will you be ready?" The Odyssey was not a plane. It was her father's 400-foot support vessel, a yacht that looked more like a naval destroyer. "Yes," Amelia said, looking at the sax box. "Yes, I will." The Metropolitan Grand Ballroom was a sea of black ties and sequins. It was the Real Estate Guild Awards dinner, the single most important night for New York's, and by extension the world's property tycoons. And tonight, David Hayes was the man of the hour. He stood near the grand staircase, a glass of champagne in his hand, his Tom Ford tux fitting him like a glove. He was, by all accounts, a success. The waterfront project was on the 5-yard line. His Rising Star Award was a shoe-in, and on his arm was Chloe Vanderbilt. She was a vision in the silver Versace gown. She was dazzling electric, her diamonds catching the light, her laughter ringing out. She was holding his arm, her red-taloned hand possessive. She was his. "See, darling," she whispered, nuzzling his jaw. "This is where you belong, not in some dusty garden with her." David nodded, the champagne and the adrenaline making him bold. Amelia had left. He'd come home 2 days prior to an empty house, just a note on the kitchen counter. "David, I've gone to my father's for a while." He'd felt a brief pang of, what guilt number relief. It was perfect. She had quietly bowed out. No drama, no screaming, just simple quiet, Amelia fading away. He wouldn't even have to fight her for the house. He'd just let her have it. He was moving on. "You're right," he said to Chloe, pulling her closer. This is my life." Mark and Isabella Jennings glided over. "David, Chloe, you two look perfect together." Isabella gushed, her eyes approving of Chloe's high-wattage glamour. "Simply perfect." "We think so too," Chloe said, smiling. And then the room temperature dropped. The chatter near the main entrance didn't just quiet, it stopped. A ripple of silence spread through the ballroom, a void that moved toward the center of the room. David turned. "What's going on?" At the entrance, a woman was standing. She wore no sequins, no Versace. She was wearing a simple high-necked, long-sleeved black dress. It was acris, understated elegant, and costing more than Chloe's entire outfit. Her hair was pulled back in a severe glossy chignon. Her only jewelry was the simple gold band on her ring finger. It was Amelia. But it was not the Amelia he knew. The simple garden wife was gone. This woman was regal. She looked like a CEO, a queen, a judge. David's champagne glass slipped. "Oh my God!" Chloe's head snapped around. Her face, so perfectly made up, contorted in a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. "What is she doing here?" Amelia began to walk, not toward David, not toward the bar. She walked directly toward the small, roped-off VIP section where Mark, Jennings, David, and Chloe were standing. As she approached, people didn't just step aside. They parted. She stopped a few feet away. She looked at Mark Jennings. "Mark, Isabella, a pleasure to see you again." Mark Jennings, who had built his empire on bluster, was speechless. He just nodded, his eyes wide. Amelia turned to David. Her eyes were not angry. They were not sad. They were empty. "David." "Amelia, what are you doing?" he stammered. "You left. You went to your father's. I'm here for my award." Amelia said, her voice clear and carrying in the sudden silence. Your award." Chloe burst out laughing, a harsh, ugly sound. "What award, darling, best in show for a petunia?" Amelia ignored her. "I'm accepting the Philanthropist of the Year award tonight, on behalf of the Helena Foundation." David's mind went blank. The Helena Foundation. The Hobby Fund. "Wait," Isabella Jennings said, her voice suddenly small. "The Helena Foundation, as in the foundation that just anonymously donated $100 million to the Met, that Helena Foundation." Amelia just looked at her. Chloe, seeing her evening, her man slipping away, stepped forward. She was taller than Amelia, and she used her height as a weapon looming over her. "This is pathetic," Chloe hissed, her voice low and vicious. "Even for you. You bought your way into an awards dinner. You put on a grown-up dress to try and win him back." She grabbed Amelia's arm. "Listen to me, you little mouse. He doesn't want you. No one wants you. You are nothing. You're just a simple, plain, boring little woman. You have no family, no connections, no power." She was on a roll now, her voice rising, drawing everyone in. "David needs a star," she spat, jabbing a finger at Amelia's chest. "He needs a warrior. He needs me. And you're just the sad little wife he was smart enough to finally get rid of." She sneered, looking at the simple black dress. "I mean, look at you. Did you think this made you look powerful? You just look poor. You look like his mistake." Amelia stood there, absorbing the tirade. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. When Chloe was finally finished breathing hard in her triumph, Amelia very calmly reached up and removed Chloe's hand from her arm. She looked at David, his face ashen, his body shaking. "She's right, David," Amelia said. "You do need a warrior." Then she turned to Chloe. "And you've made a terrible, terrible mistake." "The only mistake," Chloe scoffed, "was David ever marrying you." "No." Amelia said, a new cold authority in her voice. "The mistake was assuming I was the one who was out of my league." At that moment, the stage lights dimmed. The guild's president stepped up to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice boomed, "we have a very special guest, a man who has for decades been one of the world's most powerful and unseen forces. Tonight, to present our Philanthropist of the Year award to the Helena Foundation, he is making his first public appearance in 20 years. Please welcome, Julian Rousseau." Chloe's triumphant smirk froze. David's world tilted on its axis. "Rousseau. As in Rousseau Villard. Maritime, the ghost." The name echoed in his head. Rousseau, Amelia's father's name. He looked at Chloe, her face now a mask of confusion. He looked at Amelia, who was watching the stage with a calm, sad resignation. And he looked toward the side of the stage where a tall, gaunt man in an impeccably simple, dark Zegna suit was walking out, his face like that of a bird of prey. David Hayes had just enough time to whisper one word before his legs gave out. "Oh, no." The man who walked on stage was not a man. He was a legend, Julian Rousseau was the kind of person who didn't enter a room. He absorbed it. The air became thinner. The light seemed to bend toward him. He was perhaps 60, with a shock of silver hair and eyes so pale blue they looked like ice. He moved with an economy of motion that suggested immense coiled power. He did not look at the crowd. He did not smile. In the ballroom, billionaires and real estate titans, men who considered themselves masters of the universe, were fumbling for their phones. They were taking pictures of a ghost. David Hayes was not breathing. He was hyperventilating. Rousseau, Amelia's father, the logistics guy, the quiet guy. Chloe Vanderbilt's blood had turned to ice water. She knew that name. Everyone knew that name. It was the name that underwrote governments. It was the name that owned the ports that David's waterfront project so desperately needed access to. What? Chloe stammered, her gaze flicking between the man on stage and Amelia. That's not. It can't be. Julian Rousseau reached the podium. He adjusted the microphone, a sound that echoed like a gunshot in the silent room. "Good evening," he said. His voice was quiet, yet it filled the entire vast hall. It was a voice that did not need to shout. "They asked me to come out here to present an award. I dislike awards. I dislike events." He looked out, his gaze sweeping the room, and for a second his eyes locked with David's. David felt the look like a physical blow, a spike of ice in his chest. "But the Helena Foundation," Rousseau continued, "is important. It is named for my late wife, Helena. It is an organization dedicated to the principle that real strength is not loud, that real power is not seen. It is felt." He paused. "The founder and anonymous director of this $50 billion fund is my daughter. A woman who has for her entire life chosen quiet service over the noise of wealth. A woman who wanted to be loved for who she was, not what she was." He looked directly at Amelia. Amelia Rousseau. The name hit the room. Amelia Rousseau. Isabella Jennings let out a small, strangled gasp and knocked over her water glass. Mark Jennings looked like he was about to have a heart attack. And Chloe. Chloe was shaking. Her face, a moment ago so full of venom, was now a concave mask of abject primal terror. "Please," Julian said. "My daughter. Amelia." Amelia walked past Chloe and David, who were frozen like statues in a Pompeii of their own making. She didn't look at them. She walked up the steps and stood beside her father. He kissed her on the forehead. "They mock your simplicity, Leah," he whispered just for her. "They mock it because they cannot buy it." Amelia took the heavy crystal award. She stepped to the microphone. "Thank you," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Thank you, Father." She looked out at the room. "My father is right. I have always." Thompson preferred the quiet. "I believe that what you do matters more than what you wear, that your character is more important than your connections. For the past 5 years, I have been conducting an experiment to see if that was true." Her eyes found David. "My husband, David Hayes." David flinched as if she had struck him. "Did not know the extent of my family's logistics business. I wanted him to love me. Amelia, the gardener, the woman in the simple cotton dress." A single tear traced a path down her cheek. She did not wipe it away. "The experiment has concluded." She looked at Chloe Vanderbilt. Her voice did not rise. It didn't have to. "I am simple. I am plain. I am unconnected." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "And you, Miss Vanderbilt," she said, "you are a very, very poor judge of character. You see, you mocked my clothes. But you didn't realize that my foundation owns the bank that holds the debt on Versace. You mocked my hobby, but my hobby just funded the entire cancer wing your gala was trying to raise money for." She turned her gaze, sweeping over the VUP table. "You all live in a world of surfaces. You swim in a world of power. But you don't even know what real power is. Real power," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, "is choice. And tonight, I am choosing." She looked at her husband. "David, you're fired." David's jaw dropped. "What, you can't fire me, you don't—" "Mark," he looked desperately at Mark Jennings. Mark Jennings was staring at Julian Rousseau, his face slick with sweat. "Actually, she can," Rousseau said, stepping up to the mic again. "As of 4:30 this afternoon, the Helena Foundation, through a subsidiary, completed a leveraged buyout of Jennings Stryker. My daughter is your new boss. Or was." The room erupted. David Hayes collapsed. Not in a faint. He just folded. His legs went out, and he crumpled to the carpet, a 5,000 tuxedo-clad heap of ruined ambition. Chloe Vanderbilt did not collapse. She stood trembling, her face white. She was looking at Julian Rousseau. "Mr. Rousseau," she began, her voice a desperate, croaking plea. "Mr. Rousseau, I am an asset. I am. This was a misunderstanding. I can help you. I can manage your PR. This is, I can fix this." Julian Rousseau looked at her. He regarded her as one might regard an insect. "Ms. Vanderbilt," he said, his voice flat and cold, "you are a practitioner of brand strategy. Are you not? Yes, the best." She cried, sensing a lifeline. "Then you should know," he said, "that the Rousseau name does not have a brand. It has a reputation, and you have offended it." He snapped his fingers. He hadn't even looked, but two men in dark, identical suits were suddenly there. "Miss Vanderbilt is loud," Julian said to no one in particular. "She is disturbing my daughter's evening. Please, see that she finds her. Exit." "No." "Oh," Chloe shrieked as the men took her by the arms. "You can't do this. David, do something." But David was still on the floor, weeping. "I know people," she screamed as they dragged her, the silver Versace dress tearing. "I have connections." "So do I," Amelia said, her voice a whisper, as she watched her life's betrayer be physically removed from the ballroom. The fallout was not a storm. It was not a chaotic emotional explosion. It was a clinical, silent, and terrifyingly efficient disassembly. Julian Rousseau did not operate with anger. He operated with consequence. In the 48 hours that followed the Real Estate Guild Awards, Dinner Two Lives were not just ruined. They were deconstructed piece by piece until nothing was left but the rubble of their own arrogance. For David Hayes, the reckoning began with the sunrise. He woke up not in his bed, nor Chloe's, but on a stiff, velvet-upholstered sofa in a secluded alcove of the Metropolitan Grand's main lobby. His head throbbed a dull, hammering pain from the champagne, the adrenaline, and the soul-crushing impact of his own stupidity. His Tom Ford tuxedo was rumpled, the bow tie undone, hanging around his neck like a tiny silk noose. A security guard, seeing him stir, walked over and placed a glass of water on the table beside him. "Your car is no longer here, Mr. Hayes," the guard said, his face a mask of professional neutrality. "It was reclaimed by the leasing agency at 4:17 a.m. "Reclaimed," David croaked. "That's... the lease is... You should check your phone, sir," the guard said, and walked away. His phone. He fumbled for the iPhone 15 Pro Max that Chloe had insisted he get. It was hot to the touch. The screen lit up 147 unread messages, 28 missed calls. He was still in a fog, a haze of denial. This was a nightmare, a horrible public embarrassment. He'd smooth it over. He'd apologize. Amelia. She was kind. She was simple. She'd forgive him. He'd just have to grovel. His thumb, trembling, opened the first missed call. A voicemail. From Mark Jennings, left at 11:52 p.m. David pressed play. He expected yelling. He did not expect the sound of pure, unadulterated terror. "David, you... Mark's voice was a hoarse whisper, as if he was afraid of being overheard. "You idiot. You monumental idiot. Do you know what you've done? Do you know who that is? Rousseau isn't just rich, David. He owns the ports. He owns the banks. He owns..." "Oh, God," a sound of glass smashing. "Don't come to the office, ever. We'll mail you your personal effects. Your severance is nothing. You're in breach. You humiliated a principal. If you ever contact me again, I will have you arrested for harassment. You're done. You're finished, David. You've ruined me." The call cut out. David stared at the phone. Ruined him. He scrolled. Email. The first was from Villard National Bank, Commercial Lending Division, sent at 1:04 a.m. Subject: notice of immediate covenant breach. Loan 884G. Dear Mr. Hayes, this email serves as official notification that per your loan agreement, you are in breach of Covenant 27. B. Violation of moral turpitude, as defined by the lender, resulting in significant public disgrace and material risk to the lender's reputation. Your $2.5 million line of credit has been frozen effective immediately. Furthermore, your primary mortgage on the Greenwich property, 45 Willow Lane, has been called. Full repayment is due within 30 days, or foreclosure proceedings will commence. Villard National. Rousseau Villard. It wasn't just a bank, it was her bank. The bank he'd been using so arrogantly to fund his new life. His hands were shaking so hard, he almost dropped the phone. The second email was from a name he didn't recognize. S. Arlen-esque. Wachtel, Lipton, Rosen and Katz. Sent at 6:15 a.m. Subject: Hayes v. Rousseau. Mr. Hayes, do not under any circumstances attempt to contact our client, Ms. Amelia Rousseau. Any attempt will be viewed as harassment. Divorce papers will be served to you by end of day. Our client is being exceptionally generous. She is not contesting the prenuptial agreement you yourself drafted and insisted upon. The prenup. David's stomach contents turned to acid. He remembered that day 5 years ago in his old modest law office. He had presented it to her feeling so smart, so protective of his future earnings. The agreement was simple. In the event of a divorce, each party would leave with what they entered the marriage with. Amelia, he thought, had entered with some small trust fund, her hobby foundation. He had entered with $81,000 in student loan debt and a leased Mercedes. He had, in his towering arrogance, built a legal fortress to protect his $100 in the making million from her, from $50 billion. He was not just ruined. He was broke. He was less than broke. He stumbled out of the lobby, the morning light of physical assault. The doorman wouldn't look at him. He hailed a cab, paid in cash. He realized with a jolt of panic, checking his wallet for the last $300 he had, and gave the driver the address to the pied-à-terre. His love nest. He'd get his things. He'd figure this out. He walked into the gleaming marble lobby. Miguel, the doorman, who had pocketed David's $100 handshakes for 6 months, was at the desk. He didn't smile. He didn't even look up. "Mr. Hayes," Miguel said, his voice flat. "Miguel, I need to go up," David said, walking toward the elevator. "I can't let you do that, sir." David stopped. "What I live here." "No, sir. You stayed here. The owner has rescinded your access." "The owner, I pay the rent." "No, sir. The rent was paid in full for 1 year by the Helena Foundation. As of 7:00 a.m. this morning, your key fob has been deactivated, and you have been listed as a do not admit security risk." David stared, dumbfounded. He had been living in her apartment. He had been conducting his affair with his mistress in a property owned by his wife. The sheer cold, calculated patience of it. It was horrifying. My things. They are being packed, sir. They will be mailed to your last known permanent address. The house in Greenwich, the one the bank was about to take. He was quite literally on the street in a dirty tuxedo with $300 in his pocket. The city's morning smells, hot garbage, street cart pretzels, bus exhaust hit him like a physical blow. This was his new reality. For Chloe Vanderbilt, the destruction was more artistic. She woke up in her all-white penthouse, the Versace dress, in a torn silver heap on the floor. She woke up to her phone ringing a relentless, buzzing shriek. She grabbed it, her head pounding. It was Rick from page 6. "Chloe, baby, talk to me." Rick's voice was giddy. "Is it true? Were you physically thrown out?" "We have photos, Chloe. Photos of you being dragged out." My God, that Versace was shredded. Who was he? That old guy. Was that Julian Rousseau? You insulted Julian Rousseau's daughter. Chloe's blood turned to ice water. She hung up. This was fine. This was to spin. She was Chloe Vanderbilt. She created narratives. She would get ahead of this. She went to her war room, her sleek white lacquer desk, and her laptop. She would release a statement, a misunderstanding, a passionate evening. She tried to log into her Instagram at Chloe Vanderbilt. Error, account not found. She let out a short, hysterical laugh. A glitch. She tried Twitter. This account has been suspended for violating our terms of service. Panic, cold and sharp, pricked her skin. Her website. https google.com. Search chloevanderbiltpr.com. She typed it in. A blank white screen. 404. Not found. This was not a blacklist. This was an erasure. Rousseau hadn't just gotten her fired. He had reached into the digital ether and deleted her. The brand of Chloe Vanderbilt had ceased to exist. Her clients. She could fix this. She called her biggest account the Guggenheim Gala. She was put through to a stony-voiced assistant. Ms. Vanderbilt. Yes, we are. Pivoting our brand strategy. Your services are no longer required. Click. She called the governor's ball committee. We've decided to go in a different direction. Please remit your final invoice. The final call. Her bank. She had to move her money. She checked her Chase private client app. Account frozen. Please contact your branch manager. She called the number, screaming at the poor receptionist, until her private manager, Mr. Blevins, picked up. Mr. Blevins, what is this? Why is my account frozen? The man on the other end was audibly trembling. Ms. Vanderbilt, I'm so sorry. I can't. My hands are tied. All your assets, all your lines of credit, they are all frozen. By who? By the federal government. The what? Chloe sank onto her white silk settee. An investigation, Ms. Vanderbilt. The IRS, the SEC. It seems a concerned citizen provided an anonymous tip to the Southern District of New York at about 3:00 a.m. A tip about what? She shrieked. Tax fraud, wire fraud, misrepresentation of assets, undeclared gifts from clients. It's all here. It's Ms. Vanderbilt. It's very detailed. It was all the shady grey area fixing she had done to build her empire. The cash gifts, the offshore consulting fees, the gifts from clients that she'd never claimed as income. Rousseau hadn't framed her. He had simply exposed her. She looked around her pristine white penthouse, the Balmain blazers in the closet, the 40 pairs of Louboutins. They weren't hers. They were all purchased with leveraged credit, with a brand that had just evaporated. She wasn't rich. She was just a woman who was good at pretending. She was, in a word, simple, and she was in every way that mattered done. 6 months passed. In the elite circles of New York, London, and Hong Kong, the Real Estate Guild Awards dinner was no longer just a date on the calendar. It was a legend, a cautionary tale whispered in yacht clubs and private trading floors. They called it the Night of the Ghost. The evening Julian Rousseau materialized, and with a few quiet words, evaporated 2 of the city's most ambitious players. The world had moved on, but for the architects of that night's humiliation, there was no moving on. There was only after. For the antagonists, the consequences were as public as their ambition had been. Chloe Vanderbilt's federal investigation was swift and brutal. Faced with irrefutable, meticulously organized evidence of tax fraud, wire fraud, and undeclared income, she was crushed. Her lawyers, who demanded a retainer she no longer had, advised her to plead guilty. She lost everything. The penthouse, the Balmains, the credit lines, all seized by the government to pay a fraction of her fines and back taxes. She was barred from working in public relations finance or any consulting capacity for life. She was last seen and photographed by the very page 6 she used to feed working at the Macy's fragrance counter in the Short Hills Mall. Her blonde hair, now showing dark roots, was pulled back in a regulation ponytail. Her hands, once adorned with yellow diamonds, were now chapped from spritzing l'étoile on paper strips. She wore a black polyester uniform and a plastic name tag that read, Chloe. The ultimate humiliation was not the job. It was the visibility. Shoppers, women who used to read about her, would stop stare and whisper, "Is that?" She had become the very thing she dreaded most, a common spectacle, a simple charity case. David Hayes's fall was quieter, but deeper. The 30-day notice on his mortgage was not a negotiation, it was a death sentence. The prenuptial agreement he had so arrogantly crafted was his financial execution. He left the marriage with his $80,000 in student debt, which had with interest grown, and the clothes on his back. The Amex Centurion card was, of course, Amelia's. His own credit tied to the defaulted loans was destroyed. No one in New York real estate would return his calls. The Hayes name was now synonymous with Rousseau's warning. He was radioactive. After 2 months of sleeping on a friend's couch, a friend who quickly tired of the association, he found a job. The irony was a cosmic, cruel joke. He was hired as a logistics manager for a regional curtain rod distributor in a windowless industrial park in Yonkers. He managed spreadsheets in a cramped fluorescent-lit cubicle, tracking the very things he once mocked. He had become his own false, dismissive vision of Amelia's father. He was a simple, quiet man in logistics. He spent his nights in a small, damp studio apartment, drinking cheap whiskey and staring at a single photo on his phone, Amelia in her garden, laughing. For the protagonist, the after was not an ending. It was an activation. Amelia Rousseau sat at the head of a gleaming 30-foot slab of polished obsidian. It was a conference table on the 102nd floor of One World Trade Center, the North American headquarters of Rousseau Villard Maritime. She was not the garden wife, nor was she the avenging angel in the black acris dress. She was something new. She wore a simple, cream-colored Loro Piana cashmere sweater and tailored linen trousers. Her hair was pulled back. She looked simple. But it was the simplicity of a blade. In front of her sat the new, terrified C-suite of what used to be Jennings Stryker. She hadn't just bought the company. She had gutted it, dissolved it, and reformed it as the Helena Development Group. "Good morning," she said, her voice quiet, but the acoustics in the room were so perfect that it felt like she was whispering in each of their ears. "The waterfront project is dead." A man named Thomas, a holdover from Mark Jennings' old guard, cleared his throat. "Ms. Rousseau, with respect, that project is 90% funded. The zoning is clear. It's a guaranteed $4 billion return." Amelia looked at him, her gaze not cold, but clinical. "Thomas, you are still thinking in terms of profit. I am thinking in terms of function. That project was a monument to noise. It was designed to be seen. We are now in the business of doing." She clicked a remote. The giant screen behind her lit up. It was not a rendering of glass towers. It was a map, a community. As of today, the Helena Foundation is the sole investor in the Helena Development Group. We are no longer building 80-story luxury tombs for foreign capital. We are building a community. She pointed. The entire waterfront blocks 1 through 6 will be zero income, housing fully subsidized by the foundation. The next 10 blocks will be mixed-use, affordable housing for teachers, nurses, and artists. The luxury component, she said, pointing to a single, elegant tower, will be this, and 100% of its profits will be placed in an untouchable trust to permanently fund the New Haven Women's Shelter. Thomas looked like he was going to be sick. "But, Ms. Rousseau, that's philanthropy. That's not a business model." "No, Thomas," Amelia said, standing. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the tiny, intricate map of the city. "It's a systems change. My ex-husband." she said, her voice clear. Wanted to take. He wanted to be seen. My father moves things. He is the best in the world at moving a box from Shanghai to Rotterdam. He built an empire on things. She turned her eyes, sweeping over her new board. She said, am going to move systems. She had made her choice. She was still at her core a gardener. She still loved the smell of potting soil. But she had learned a crucial lesson taught to her by the vipers she had invited into her home. You can't just tend your own small patch of dirt, hoping to protect it from the blight. To truly make things grow, you have to control the water. You have to guarantee the sun. You have to be the climate. Amelia Rousseau. The simple wife was done tending her garden. She was about to terraform the entire coastline, and that everyone is what happens when you mistake quiet for weak. Chloe and David built their lives on shiny, hollow surfaces, and the second they bumped into something real, something solid, their entire world shattered. Amelia's simplicity wasn't a lack of something. It was a presence. It was the confidence of someone who has nothing to prove because they own everything. So what do you think? Was Amelia too kind for too long? Or was her final devastating move the perfect response? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read all of them. This story is a reminder to never judge a book by its cover, because you have no idea if that simple cover is actually bound in the most expensive leather in the world. If you loved this drama and this twist, please, you know what to do. Hit that like button so hard it turns red. Click share to send this to someone who needs a reminder that a high-profile life isn't always a happy one. And most importantly, subscribe to this channel. And ring that bell. We post stories of karma, revenge, and justice every single week, and you don't want to miss what's coming next.